Welcome one and all. It's time for an Age of Sigmar battle report. Stormcast Eternals versus the vile, disgusting, swamp water encrusted Kruleboyz. 2,000 points, and let's leap in. So, you can see that this list, of course, features the mighty Krondys, the legendary wizard dragon of the Stormcast Eternals, and this isn't so much a list as it is a collection of units that I would like to try in this edition. I haven't played too much of it yet. I had one event since the edition was out for real, and lots of units that I haven't even sampled yet. So there's very little in here that I've got experience using in this edition. One of those units, though, is the long strikes, who are very good now. And they've always been good, but they're good for different reasons. They used to be quite long range compared to other shooting in the game. Now, you can make them teleport around if you take that sub-faction ability, and they can run and shoot, they can shoot in the opponent's turn, they can redeploy and then shoot in the opponent's turn, all kinds of crazy stuff you can do with them now. They're really good at shooting against big hero monsters. It's a very nice ability to have. And what else have we got in here? Prosecutors, I gave them a little bit of a try so far. We've got Bad Squiddo in the chat. Good evening. So, 3 prosecutors, and they are pretty tasty now because they can do a 3 dice charge, which is a little bit rare. And you can see that Krondys is joined by 3 praetors to act as bodyguard. So, when the praetors are within combat range of Krondys, so within 3 inches, then they both get a 5+ ward save, which is nice. We'll see if they're able to keep up with him, because in the previous edition it was easier to keep the bodyguard unit up because command points were more freely handed out. They weren't quite such a valuable commodity as they are in this edition. So we'll see if having to auto-run them every turn becomes too expensive, or whether they need to be comboed with something that can teleport them up with the big hero that they're following around. Because that might be the way to do it. So we'll see how they do. It's just an experiment. Then, past the opposing force a second, on the side of the table here we've got Krondys, the Lord Imperatant, and 6 Annihilators with Grand Hammers. So not a lot of units. We've got 3 regiments here, so 3 drops. One regiment is just Krondys on his own. So this combo, the way this works, is the Annihilators will drop in with the Imperatant, who will then allow all the units that have dropped down around him to move d3 inches, which is how you get them closer. Previously you used to just be able to set up closer to the enemy, now you make a move after you drop in. And then Krondys can give them all +1 to charge and +1 attacks on that turn, and then when he charges he gives units around him a ward save. So we'll see if this works out. It's not particularly optimal list, not all of the units complement each other that well, but I'm just trying out some different things, trying out this combo and trying out Krondys as well to see how they do. And the Imperatant and the Annihilators are 1 regiment, and then the 3rd regiment is Krondys, the Praetors, the Prosecutors, and the Vanguard Raptors. Krondys has to be the general as well, because he's a War Master, so that means that all those units in his regiment will be eligible to be murdered and give away a battle tactic, potentially. The sub-faction ability I've got is the ability to teleport the long strikes, and the Lord Imperatant also has some abilities on him as well. So, cracking them open here. So I've given him Envoy of the Heavens, which is, it's when a unit is destroyed, you can give another unit that's nearby a 5+ ward save in the next turn. And he's also got Artifact of Power, the Null Pendant, to reduce the control score of an enemy unit, which could be good on an objective. We'll see if that comes up. You can see that it's the Border War battle plan, by the way. So you've got a home objective, you've got 2 on the centre line, and you've got 1 in the enemy area. And to score points, you get 1 for your own objective, 2 for each one on the centre line, and 5 for the enemy's middle objective, up to a maximum of 6. So if you want the maximum, you have to take the enemy's home zone. If you want to score a decent chunk, you could hold all the rest. But obviously, the easiest way to score is to just get onto your opponent's objective and keep your own, and that'll give you a nice juicy amount of points over the course of the game. Then, let's move on to the Kruleboyz and see what I'm up against here, shall we? So, we've got some Bolt Boys, There's a unit hiding behind this terrain there. We've got some Hobgrot Slitters. We have got Gobsprak, the big flying wizard of doom. Is he actually a wizard, this one? I'm not sure. There's a wizard down there. Is it the Swamp Caller Shaman with the pot grot? There is a big Sludge Raker there. There is a Killbow, which is obviously trained on Krondys because it would do massive damage to a monster. We've got some more Bolt Boys over on this side. We've got a unit behind the terrain, another unit there. I think there's a unit of 3 and a unit of 6 on this side. There's also these Monster Hunters, which are a unit that are very good against monsters. And then there's this big unit here, which are they're Gut Rippers, aren't they? And you can see that the Krond Spine has already been cast by the time I've taken this picture. And that's despite me going first, because of course you can cast reaction spells in your opponent's turn now. So, what's my plan? The Long Strikes would like to be able to kill one of the big monsters. They're really good at that. They'll be on Rend 3 against them. And the Annihilators also wouldn't mind smashing into these sort of things. But this guy, I hear about some of his abilities before the game, and he can just teleport away from combat, which I think is on a 3+. The Kruleboyz also have a lot of dirty tricks they can do, which involve like teleporting or making their poison attacks better. So, quite dangerous army to face, and we'll see how it goes. So, into the first turn, I'm going first, and I go for Reclaim the Realms, which seems like it should be easy. So, have one of my units in each section of the table, in each table quarter, and 6 inches from enemy units. Should be doable, because you can do it with units that have come down from the sky. So the Long Strikes drop down, and actually they teleport. So initially I put them here, and then later I changed my mind and moved them to here, so they're actually claiming this table section, because they're planning to shoot the only unit that would be a threat to them anyway, for a counter charge. So they're going to be here in a minute. The Prosecutors drop down, and they move from behind here actually and run onto this objective. The Praetors move up with Krondys. My plan was to throw Krondys into combat, which is why I've used up his finest hour now. I was going to try and throw him into this unit. But the Krond Spine was then successfully cast, and I thought that's a bit risky to send him in there, because Krond Spine countercharging would be pretty dangerous. The Praetors are keeping up with Krondys at the moment. I'm just staying away now, because I'm not that confident in Krondys' abilities against the Krond Spine and everything else around here. The Annihilators and the Imperator and Gardas have all dropped down on this side, and then they move a bit closer to the enemy as well, with the Imperatant's ability. The Long Strikes are going to be blasting away at those Monster Hunters. So here we go, whittle down that unit heavily, so that's good. Then Krondys uses All-Out Defense as a reaction against the counter-shooting ability of the Kruleboyz, but I don't think they do anything to him this turn. I think they just miss with the Killbow. The Annihilators managed to get into the big unit of Bolt Boys that are back here and just whomp them all to death, so they're dead, 6 of them. And Kruleboyz, unusually for this game, don't have a way to bring their units back to life, which is good. And Gardas and the Imperatant did not make their charge, but I don't mind leaving one of them out here because it's good for a battle tactic to have a unit near a table edge outside of your territory. There's a specific battle tactic where that is the thing you want to be doing. So I'm just scoring for 2 objectives because I didn't put the Long Strikes on this one. I didn't want to tempt the Krond Spine into charging them and ruining my battle tactic. So you can see the Long Strikes will put there and gets me 7 points. So 2 for this, 1 for this, and 4 for the battle tactic. And into the Kruleboyz turn. So let's see what it is. My opponent goes for Slay the Entourage, which is pick a unit in the enemy general's regiment, and selects, I believe, might be the Long Strikes. Reformed Bugman says, Krondys is pretty good. I like the Paladors, the movement and power through. Yes, but aren't Paladors, they're not the ones that are getting deleted, are they? Who is it that's getting deleted? That's the Dracolines, isn't it, that are being erased from history. But the Paladors, I think, are they staying? I think the Paladors might be staying. But Krondys is pretty tasty. He wasn't in range in the first turn to do any of his powerful spells, and I decided not to throw out a Purple Sun yet. Or I might have just failed to cast it, actually. So, you can see that in a sneaky manoeuvre, the Kruleboyz have moved these hunters, monster hunters, closer to my long strikes than any of the monsters are, including the Krondys, which means that when I do my counter-shooting ability, the covering fire, I have to target the closest unit. Now, I could have also redeployed them for another command point and then done it, and thus targeted the Krondys, but he's a bit further away, so I'm thinking he might fail his charge anyway. Over on this side, Gobsprak and the Hobgrots have gone after the Annihilators and thrown a bit of damage onto them with their grenades, and they're going to be attempting to charge. The thing with Gobsprak, he charges in, he then does wounds on the charge, and then he can flap away and not even fight. So that's going to be his plan, probably. So when I do my counter-shooting ability, I kill the monster hunters with the long strikes. So the killing is going pretty well so far, and I've only lost one long strike to enemy shooting so far. But the Krondys does get into them, sadly, so he might well kill them. I can bring back one of my units, though, at half strength at some point in the game. So you can see that he's taken the unit down to just one now, which is sad. And Gobsprak decided he didn't want to fight, so just teleported away from the Annihilators after doing a pitiful amount of damage on the charge and only killing one. So, next turn could be quite important, because what I could do, I can move my long strike out of combat if I go next. Intentionally move out of combat, get himself killed deliberately, so that I can then use a command point and bring 3 long strikes in immediately anywhere on the table. I would be able to get the Annihilators charging in, possibly to this big guy, or maybe some of these monsters around here. Get them charging into something in this big mess. Get Krondys in there as well. Fire off some of his debuffs into the monsters, maybe. Get the Prosecutors in there. Just pile everything into the middle. And I think it would be a fun time if I get the next turn. If I don't get it, then he'll probably get killed anyway. So that bit of the plan still stands. But the enemy would, of course, get the chance to hit me first. So my opponent only scores 1 point for holding this objective, because Krondys can't hold an objective, and the battle tactic was failed because this long strike is still alive. So my opponent chooses to take the double, so that means he's not going to score any battle tactics this turn, which you might think is very risky considering he's only on 1 point, but I think he was looking at the lay of the land here and thought that if I get the next turn, I'm going to be able to kill so much stuff and score a battle tactic that it doesn't matter what happens after that, because it'll be such a crippling blow. So he chooses to take the turn. No battle tactic. I do a counter spell with Krondys to put -1 charge dice, which is Starfall, onto the Gut Rippers, so that they're very unlikely to succeed with a charge in 21 this turn, because they're one of the scariest units. So that's quite a good thing to have got off. The Killbow puts 8 wounds onto Krondys, which is quite significant. I think that's combined with some other shooting that he took as well, so I all-out defensed him to protect against that. And this is with the ward save as well, of having the Praetors nearby. And that was from the Bolt Boys as well. And he's dropped down to 9 now, so he's lost a lot of his wounds. The last long strike is killed off. Von Bugman confirms, yes, Dracolines are out, Paladors are staying. Yeah, I do have an unassembled box of Dracolines, so if I ever get round to building those, I could probably just build them as Dracodian Guard. I might just change which arms they have, for example, make them look a little bit less evocatory. So, again, Gobsprak goes into the Annihilators, and they're another unit that could come back at half strength if they get killed. So he goes in there, does a few wounds on the charge, as you can see. And the Hobgrots have gone in as well. And then when it comes down to the fighting, he just eats all the Annihilators. So they killed some Bolt Boys, and maybe 3 of them could come back to life now. I've got a choice whether to bring back the 3 Annihilators or 3 Long Strikes. The Annihilators are more expensive than Long Strikes, so for pure points value, that's the best choice. But for utility, Long Strikes can teleport in this list, and they can strike from a greater distance, so they might be the better choice to bring in. So my opponent scores 3 points there, so I can't remember which battle tactic. Oh, there's no battle tactic, was there, this round, because it was a chosen double turn, so no battle tactic, and my opponent has got the home objective and this side objective here. So, I've lost the Annihilators and the Long Strikes, and I've got a choice of who to bring back. I also have to decide where to attack next turn. So, I go for Slay the Entourage, pick a unit in the enemy general's regiment, and I complete the battle tactic if that unit is destroyed. So, I am going to try and destroy... I think it's this unit I choose here. These bolt boys, because my plan is to bring back 3 long strikes and then just shoot them to death. So I move Krondys round here, and my plan was to attack the unit of 6 bolt boys that are here, but they use a dirty trick and teleport away, which is not very friendly. The prosecutors are also up there. So what's my plan now? Charge with Krondys, roll high enough so that I can attack the big sludge raker instead of these guys here. But you can see I have fired off a double debuff onto them. And you'll see how ill-advised that is as well. So, I've given them -1 to hit and -1 to wound with my spells. The issue with that is that they don't even care. Because they want to be doing mortal wounds, so they want to just roll 6s anyway. So they don't care about being -1 to hit or wound, which is obviously an oversight on my part at this point. Krondys does make it in. He has to get to both of these units, sadly. And then the prosecutors making their charge over on this side, because what they were going to do is charge into the Hobgrots and Gobsprak to tie him down so he can't countercharge Krondys. But they roll a 1-1-1 on the charge. On 3 dice. And then I measure and decide, you know what, I'm going to save the command point because Gobsprak is 10 inches away. So if my opponent wants to use 2 command points to try that countercharge, then I'll just let him have it. And throw away the command points and probably fail. However, you can see he succeeds. I did have another way I was supposed to be locking that down. With Gardus, you can see he's right there. He was supposed to be joining in with that, but I totally forgot he existed because of where I was sitting during the game. Gardus was actually invisible behind this bit of terrain, because I was sitting over to this side, so I forgot Gardus was there, so I didn't even attempt to charge with him. So this is why I don't normally like to sit during war games, because you do lose sight of units. But the reason I was sitting is because I recently had a knee operation. So I'm going to blame that for my oversight of Gardus not being spotted there and not even attempting a charge. But my opponent does then kindly let me do a charge with Gardus afterwards. But I said, because I forgot to do it at the time, I'm not even going to try and pull it back and say, no, you can't countercharge. I'll just charge into the Hobgrots with him. That seems fair. Gobsprak decides to get straight out of combat after doing some mortal wounds, which is probably a good idea. And, unfortunately, a dirty trick is played on Krondys, so that he has to strike last while being on 1 wound. You'll also notice that I didn't bother rallying Krondys this turn, because he was already quite healthy at the time. I decided it wasn't worth it. And, what's this? He doesn't have his bodyguard with him either. Let's go back. So, the positioning of the Gut Rippers meant that if I moved the Praetors up with Krondys, then they could have potentially redeployed onto the objective, my home objective. And then, once they're on it, I'm not shifting that many guys from my home objectives. That's just going to be an easy 5 points every turn for the Kruleboyz. So I decided, the trade-off, I was going to leave the Praetors behind. And the fact that this isn't really a list is somewhat biting me here, because first of all, I didn't have enough drops, or I didn't have enough units, should I say, so that the prosecutors couldn't go into the sky. So they've been on the table from the start, when you can just bring them down 9 inches away from the enemy and then do a 3d6 charge, whereas I've been having to move around with them. And I haven't been able to move the Praetors out because I could have done with a unit down here to sit on my objective. So, also they need to be here because obviously enemy units can just teleport. That's the most important thing, rather than them redeploying, actually. Teleporting onto here is way more of an issue. So, Krondys, because he's now been given strike last, Gardus there is going to eat a load of Hobgrots. Krondys gets killed. So at this point, it's essentially game over, I think, because the Annihilators are dead and Krondys is dead. Half the long strikes are dead. The other 3 that do come on do complete my battle tactic, because they killed the Bolt Boys over on this side when they dropped in. And then Gardus kills a load of Hobgrots, as you'd expect. And there we go. So I pick up 7 points again. So I'm well in the lead here. I'm 10 points up, but it is not looking good at all. The enemy have still got way too much stuff left, and I don't. Most of my significant heavy-hitting units are dead now. So, into the next turn, and the Kruleboyz get the turn again. So, had I got the turn here, what would have happened? Well, I think Gobsprak is possibly not looking too healthy at the moment. He's definitely taken... Or is he just... How many wounds has he taken? I can't see a dice on him. He might be wounded, though. So I'd be able to teleport the long strikes either onto an objective or into a position where they can shoot something favourable. I'd be able to get these two. He's already in combat, guard us there. The prosecutors could possibly charge into someone that I would like to kill. Maybe the kill bow, they could go up there and hit that. And Imperatant could probably stay out here, actually. Maybe the long strikes would stay out here so I could score the flank objective, the flank battle tactic. But I'm not confident at all now, so I think the Kruleboyz are going to start catching up rapidly. One Bugman, Prosecutor's Triple One, you should have taken a picture. Yes, I should have taken a picture of the 3 ones right next to them. I did actually pose them there, I think I just forgot to take the photo. But it was a hilarious moment, there was much rejoicing through the halls of the TSN arena. So the Krond spine, you can see because the enemy are going next, not the Stormcast. So my opponent wants to take a terrain feature that's wholly in my territory and outside their territory. Krond spine is going for the Praetors, along with the Gut Rippers. And the Bolt Boys as well, and working their way around the back here. The Shaman has teleported over to this side. And Gobsprak is going after the Prosecutors. So they redeploy to try and make him more likely to fail the charge, but they only redeploy 1 inch. So that's not going to make it too difficult at all, and the Praetors are shot off the table. The Prosecutors are charged into, and they are eaten by Gobsprak. Gardus finishes off the Hobgrots. And my opponent is scoring a big 10 points. There's the maximum. So battle tactic for taking a terrain piece, which I think was this one, and taking my objective and holding a load of other objectives as well. So 10 points. So it's now level, but I've got 1 more turn to play than my opponent. I go for take the flanks, because I've already got units in position to do it. So Imperatant's going to stay out there. Gardus is going to attempt a long charge into the Killbow. He tries to give himself +1 on the charge as well, but it still doesn't make it. And the long strikes just move down here, stay on this table edge, so they can score the battle tactic and then start shooting. And they take out 5 Bolt Boys, which is great, because they teleported over here to counter-shoot against me and to stop me shooting the Sluddraker, possibly. Not in this turn, but maybe in the next turn, because to counter to covering fire, you need to shoot the closest target. So had that unit been there next turn, I wouldn't have been able to shoot the Sluddraker. Or maybe they were just moving into range to shoot me. So I managed to kill a load of them, so that's good. 4 points, because I'm not holding any objectives at the moment. I was hoping Gardus was going to take this one, which would have got me 5. So, had Gardus made that 9-inch charge, it's 9 inches because he gave himself +1, I think. Had he made that rerollable charge and taken this objective, that would have given me 9 points for the turn. So even though I've only got 3 units left, I would have scored a massive turn 3, and I still would have been in with a chance of winning the game. As it stands, it's looking quite bleak, because I am in the lead slightly, but not by much, and I don't have much left. My opponent gets the first crack at round 4 as well, with a priority roll success, and seizes the centre. That's going to be nice and easy. 2 units in the middle, 3 inches within 3 of the centre, and not in combat, so it's going to be very easy. Gardus takes a wound from shooting, and then he gets charged into combat and gets eaten by Gobsprak. Sluddraker moves on to this objective, and my opponent scores another 10. Just a very easy turn. Got the Gut Rippers in the middle, and I think there's someone else in the middle as well. Obviously you need 2 units in there to score. So I've only got the long strikes and the Imperatant left. So this is a very quick game now. So in my turn 4, I go for Slay the Tyrants. So I have to kill an enemy hero in combat. So that's the only one I can feasibly do, because I'm trying to kill Gobsprak. So the long strikes teleport onto an objective, so I'll get some points there. It's the only one they could teleport onto because of the proximity of enemy units. And then the Imperatant was going to try and charge him to finish him off. Unfortunately, the Imperatant failed his charge anyway. So it's a failed battle tactic, but I get 2 points for holding this one and just staying in touch slightly. And then my opponent wins the priority roll again, and in turn 5 picks Do Not Waver. So 2 friendly units fight and none of them die. And Gobsprak wants to kill the Imperatant or the long strikes. And that is about it. So a failed battle tactic because the Gut Rippers failed their charge. So only 1 unit got to fight. And so it's only 6 points for the turn. And then in my last turn, the long strike just kills Gobsprak. But in order to do that, he had to move out of combat. So I'm off the objective. So I just get... Hold on. How did I score? Oh, was the Imperatant still there? Yeah, I think the Imperatant may have been there. Or is he dead? I'm not sure. Either way... Oh yeah, it got 0. Yeah, that 2 is from last turn. So 0 points. So it doesn't matter that I killed him. That doesn't achieve anything. And as you can see, started off quite well for the Stormcast. Started off terribly for the Kruleboyz. And then taking that double turn, choosing not to score, turned out to be a big deal. But really where it turned was on my turn too, where there was a series of hilarious Krondys-related blunders. First of all, debuffing a unit that doesn't care about being debuffed because they're always fishing for 6s anyway was a terrible idea, when I could have tried to lock them down with a purple sun or something. What else? I should have had more units in my army, because the Praetors had to ditch hanging out with Krondys to stop the enemy just auto-teleporting onto my home objective. And that was not great. That didn't go too well in the end. The Annihilators did a decent job murdering the Bolt Boys, and then had I won a priority roll after that, maybe they could have done something. That would have been helpful. And Long Strikes did alright. They killed a fair bunch of stuff. Even the unit of 3 Long Strikes that came back did a decent job as well. So it's mainly the disappointments were the use of Krondys, I think, was the main thing. Also the list building. There's a lot of elements that didn't really work together in this list, which is fine because I'm just testing out units and seeing how they do. So I like Krondys, but you've really got to find a way to get the most out of him if you're going to spend that many points on him. You've got to direct his spells a bit better, use them more wisely, and keep his bodyguard nearby. And I think, in this edition, it's too much of a command point commitment to auto-run Praetors after him every turn. So I think you probably have to bring a teleporting unit, a teleporting priest who can translocate them to keep up with him. So I'm going to look at that as a list option for future. I was also missing the lack of the 4 concussor unit, which does get expensive if you want to run them and a big dragon at the same time, but bringing 2 of them back to life is quite a big deal. Also, that would have helped counteract a lot of the Kruleboyz' sneaky abilities, such as making you strike last, because the concussors can also do something like that. They can get strike first, and they can shut down commands as well. So, yes, not the best game for Krondys and pals there, but a lot of lessons learned, including keep in mind all of the Kruleboyz' dirty tricks, and the fact that they can teleport away on your turn. So as soon as you pick one of the units that you want to do something with, they can teleport them far away from you. And if you don't have any way to teleport to chase after them, then you're a bit stuck. So you've got to plan out very carefully and think what dirty tricks could do to mess up your plans against Kruleboyz. So I'll keep that in mind for the future. Let me know what kind of list you would like to see me running, because I've got loads of Dracothian Guard, loads of Annihilators, I've got Vanquishers, Liberators, I've got Long Strikes, Bastion, Yndrasta, Stardrake, Lord Veritant, Relictor, Gardus. Who else have I got? I've got Prosecutors, Aetherwings, loads of Dracothian Guard, all the different varieties. I've got some of the units that are going to be removed from the game soon, like the Knight Herald or the Judicators, I think. Who else is getting deleted? The Retributors, I think they're going. I think the Knight of Zeros is staying because he's getting a new model. So we'll have to see the rules for that guy because he's not out yet. He's going to be in the new Battle Tome, which shouldn't be long now, just when I thought I was done spending money. I've spent way too much money on dwarves in the last few months. The old world. So, there we go. Not the most successful game for the Stormcast, but lessons to be taken away, and I've already got some list ideas, because there are some events coming up. I am actually going to be able to get back to events, because I can actually walk around a bit more freely now after the knee operation. So I've had to pull out of the last couple of events, but there is one coming up in 1 week's time, I think. I think it's a Sigmar event. So there's going to be more Old World as well on the channel, as always. We've got a game with Rem coming up next week, so we're going to be doing a double battle report on that, where we both break down that game. where it's going to be my dwarves probably against his wood elves, so that's going to be very exciting. There is, I think I've got 3 or 4 weeks in a row of tournaments after this weekend. So there's Sigmar, there is Old World, and then in the middle of September, or is it middle or towards the end? Somewhere in September there's the Clash of Kings as well, the biggest Kings of War tournament of the year. So that'll be very exciting. And other than that, what else is coming up on the channel? I'm going to do a video on pinning metal models, because it occurred to me, I see a lot of people on YouTube creating videos, and I look at it and think, well, that's no good, I already know how to do that, that's not much of a hobby tip. But then it gets 88,000 views, and I think, well, why didn't I do it? Why don't I tell people to do these things? Because there are lots of people out there that just don't use certain hobby techniques that I might just take for granted, because I've been in the hobby for a long time. So it seems like a nice, easy kind of video to make, and it might be helpful for people, especially because there are people who are maybe experiencing metal models for the first time at the moment with the Old World. So could be something useful to share with people. I'm also planning a video, an update on my miniature display unit, the big Kallax unit that I've got in here with the glass doors. So, because when I first did a video on that a couple of years ago, people were asking whether it was going to be a dust trap. Spoiler alert, it isn't, but I'm going to do an update on it and talk about how I've enjoyed using it and how full it is compared to then, how many extra armies I've added in there. So that's going to be some juicy content as well. And I think that's about it. So thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Let me know if you want to see more juicy Age of Sigmar content. Let me know what kind of lists you want to see. Would you like to see the Sons of Behemat in some action as well? Going to be playing lots of this, lots of Old World. Just non-stop wargaming fest on this channel, and if you want that to continue, why not pledge your entire life savings via the Patreon or the PayPal down there as well, which is mostly going to pay for my tournament tickets, which will then be reported on to the masses, so you can all learn from my either tactical mastery or tactical blunders. And all that remains to be said is, good night out there, whatever you are.